Good evening, everybody. Monday Morning Quarterback, episode 155. Man, I was looking back to see what episode number we were on, and it's been 13 weeks since we've done one of these. So appreciate your all of your patience. We've been trying to give out content in other fashions, um, tech videos and stuff like that. The viewership seemed to be declining. I did it live every Monday for over 2 years. But I get questions all the time. When you going to do it again? So I thought we'd pop back on here and do another one. And if the demand's there and the people are watching and everybody's interactive with questions, I don't mind spending Monday evenings with you. Just can't do it every single Monday anymore with as business has grown and family commitments and stuff like that. So, but it's been a minute, and definitely have some topics I want to talk about. We've already been out racing this year with customers, and so certainly want to talk about some of that and some of the things we've learned and things that are changing and things that we'd like to make our customer base aware of. Certainly, as we go through some of those, you're more than welcome to ask any questions so we can answer those. That's what kind of keeps these rolling and interactive is answering tech questions. So whether it's pertaining to tonight's topic, which is pretty much just a open forum and kind of what we've noticed, those kind of things. So, but if any question you have, go ahead and fire away, and we'll be happy to answer those. So one of the things that is a little bit of an unknown, and we're going to find out here as we get racing a little bit more, is the tires. So tires are changing across most every platform that we build suspension for. The World of Outlaws will be going to the new tire, I believe, at the Port Royal round, which they have one more at Volusia, and then they'll be going to Port. The All-Stars, they'll be on that new tire to start their point season in April. I know the non-wingers were on the new tire at Volusia, and I believe at Ocala as well. We didn't go to Ocala this year. We went to Volusia as we been working pretty hard on some new things with our wing sprint car program. So went to Volusia to try out some things and learn some things and get some more feedback and data. Our non-wing guys were always working and evolving on those packages as well, but we get to see that racing almost every single weekend in the summertime at home. So trying to hit as much wing stuff as we can. Josh, good point. So even on the quarter midget side, they've changed the left side compound in USAC or NASCAR, whatever the hell it's called now. They've changed the left side compound in that. So that was something we were going to experience for the first time with our cars out at California, but that race got canceled. I know they've been running that tire indoors at Columbus all winter. We haven't done any of those just because of how busy I've been here at work, trying to get our machine shop up and running. But I've heard that the track doesn't seem to have as much grip, and cars aren't as bikey, and definitely the cars are a lot freer on that tire. And I think we're going to see that especially here in the springtime when we're racing on cold race surfaces. So the new tire is going to be something to keep an eye on, because as that changes, what's needed from the shocks change. So you might see a shock that's been dominant, a shock brand or valving that's been dominant, and this new tire, it's lost its luster. And we're definitely very alert and acute to that situation and trying to stay on top of that, because as tires change, the need for shock valving, piston combination, base valve, etc. changes, right? So one of the reasons we went to Volusia is really try to make sure we're on top of that. We know what we have with the current tire package with the wing sprint car stuff, and when this new package comes out, to see exactly where we're going to need to be. And we're hoping we got it figured out and we nail it right out of the gate, right? Because that'll give our customers a definite advantage. So tires is one thing we're being very mindful of. The shocks are what keep that tire in contact with the racetrack, and so that's going to be really important to to what's coming up. And it, like I say, it's across the board. The late models got new tires, everything. Hoosier is going to what appears to be a easier construction to manufacture tire across the board, and limiting sizes and compounds, which only makes sense, truthfully, from a manufacturer standpoint. If they're the spec tire, why do they have to have so many options, right? Everybody's on the same thing. So, yeah, so Josh's questions there with the quarter midget stuff, going to that stiffer left side tire, are shocks and springs going to need to be changed? And that's a little bit to be seen or to be determined. I definitely was going to California with a different shock package and a different spring package, and we ran out there last year, and we were really fast out there last year, podiumed in every class. But I felt it was going to take something different with that tire. So the next deal for us probably will be the Dixie Shootout at Georgia, and have to go back and look at my notes from there. And we're probably going to be on something different there as well to start, just because in my gut I feel like it's going to take something different. Once we have that figured out after a few races, we're definitely share that with customers. Carl, some more Microd championships. Awesome. Well, bummer that you're going to a stock shock rule, but hopefully at least it's a cost-effective shock. I know some of these tracks that go to a spec shock, it doesn't really save anybody money, but hopefully at least if you got to go to a spec shock, it saves you a little bit of money. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk about that became apparent to me in my 5 days or so down in Volusia was how big of an impact different wing manufacturers have on what we need to be recommending as far as bump rubber and bump rubber gap. So, been wing racing the last few years at a pretty high level with a couple different teams. Obviously, Tyler Courtney and his crew chief Jake Argo were really close with them, and he's been very successful. And they have a really good package that they feel real comfortable with. While we never take specifics from a team and share it with another team, knowledge that we gain, general knowledge, is always passed along to all of our customers. So we had a good idea where we needed to be bump rubber wise, bump gap wise. We know what some of our 360 teams are doing, and we get down to Volusia, and I was helping Brock Zierfoss, who's new to CSI shocks, on his wing sprint car this year, and we were ended up having to be quite a bit different as far as bump rubber rate and bump gap, and the biggest difference was manufacturer of the wing. So his wing was built a little bit different than Sunshine's, which was causing us to have to run 3/4 of an inch different in bump gap and a little bit stiffer bump rubber, because his car wanted to lay left a little bit more than the 7BC did. And we changed wings throughout the week and kind of got back to neutral a little more, but it really opened my eyes to how a different brand of wing, even though it fits the World of Outlaw template and all of their rules, that different brand of wing, certainly, it's a big piece up on top of the race car and it's moving a lot of air. Really aware of all that, but I didn't realize how much it was going to change what we need to be recommending to our customers for bump gap and bump rubber rate. So that's going to be a question that we start to ask our customers as they're ordering shock packages. What brand of wing are you on? Have you changed anything? Is it their standard wing? And we're going to start to acquire as much data as we can about these different wings and what makes them tick for good customer recommendations. We really try to pride ourselves on, when a guy orders a set of shocks, to be able to ask all the questions necessary up front. So 9 times out of 10, when he gets that shock package, the recommended settings, the bump rubber, the bump gap, we hit it right out of the rip, and they're ready to go fast straight away. Always, there's certain instances and times where we have to modify or change, and that's okay, but we want to hit it as close as possible, as frequently as possible, and that's where working with a vast array of customers and acquiring as much different information as we can about the products they're using and settings and Certainly what we would recommend for somebody to run in Pennsylvania is different than California. All the Pennsylvania tracks are big. The California tracks are small. Um, Dirt's different. What a guy needs in Ohio is different than what a guy needs in Illinois just because the dirt's so much different. Not necessarily a different shock package, but recommendations as far as where they start with that package will change. So those are all things we're very mindful of as we're um, building a package for a specific customer. So if you have questions, feel free to keep firing those away, and I'll answer them and stay as late as necessary to keep answering them. Another thing that we did learn down in Florida is we had been developing a new base valve for our small body gas shock. The newest iteration of that shock is the RS23. It's replacing the RS17. So been about 5 years. We've been running the RS17, and we've continued to make improvements. We finally had enough things to change at once that it warranted a model number change, and it was that way across the board for a number of our shocks this year. But the RS23, the big aesthetic change is the base valve is gold, and you can see that. It's a little bit bigger base valve. It's gold. So the shocks look a little bit different from the outside, but they also are functioning different on the inside because of that base valve change. So we worked really hard to try to match flows on our base valves from our main piston stack to our base valve. As we've developed and changed main pistons, we really needed to update the base valve as well. And what that's allowed us to do is get lower on gas pressure. So we were able to run down to like 10 PSI in a sprint car right rear, which before we were kind of 20-ish was probably right, kind of pushing the envelope for not cavitating out at like 10 inches per second. But we're comfortably getting down to 10 PSI now, and certainly felt like when the track slicked off at Volusia, that was giving us additional grip. So we were starting the night, 40 PSI or so in the right rear, and getting down to like 25 dash or B main time, and then 10 for the feature. Even tried some twin tubes at certain points, and kind of always felt like we still had a better balance and equal amount of grip with the gas shock. Got more travel out of the twin tube, but didn't necessarily relate to more grip. So we're super happy with how that shock went, and we're also continuing the development of our double adjustable shaft. So kind of wanted to go about that our own way, and if at all possible, make sure that our double adjustable shaft, you weren't losing any travel, be the same exact height rod end as our single adjustable. So we've been working pretty hard on that and hoping to bring the next iteration of that shaft to Volusia next week for continued development. So does anybody else have any questions? Getting ready to start your season, have questions about rules changes, tire compound changes, any of that? John, great question. Yeah, so the RS17 can be updated to the 23. It's a base valve change, and depending on what year your RS17 was made, it's potentially a jet and needle change and a piston change as well. If it's a newer RS17, it would be a base valve change. So if you got it last year, it would just be a base valve update. Had you actually got the shock in 2017, it'll be a couple of parts change, but certainly worth updating if they're still in good shape. Can do just the base valve swap and a freshen up for probably about $150. So pretty good value there. Yep. Anybody else have any questions? I'm going to go down through my list here. This is another one. I've covered this multiple times. We have videos on setting gas pressure, but it seems like every time I go to the track, I see one of our customers setting their gas pressure incorrectly. You always want to make sure that you have that shock fully extended when you set your gas pressure. Reason being is that's when your divider piston is all the way up against the base valve in what we call the home position. And when it's in that position, your gas chamber is as large as it can possibly be. And that's where you want to set the gas pressure because it's a constant. If it's on the race car, depending on what your ride height is, that divider piston might be, an eighth of an inch off of the base valve, a quarter of an inch, a half of an inch, but in any of those instances, the gas chamber has shrunk. So if you set your pressure at 40, then when the shock does get to full extension, apologize, my nose itches. When your shock does get to full extension, the gas pressure will decrease, and you definitely don't want that. So you always want to set it fully extended so you know where it's at, and you can set it consistently every single race night. And that is how often you should check your gas pressure. Once an evening, and then if you need to adjust from there, you can go from there. But kind of first thing you do when you get to the racetrack, I always unhook one end of it, extend the shaft, and then set them. You don't need to take the whole thing off. Yeah, set the gas pressure every day with nitrogen, and you shouldn't have any issues as far as that's concerned. Anybody else with any questions? Where are you guys racing at for the first time? I'd like to hear that too. Where's everybody getting their season kicked off? I know quarter midgets were supposed to really fire off this week nationally. Looks like Dixie Shootout next week. There's a tune-up for that race this week at Cummins, Georgia. Some guys will be at. Some wing guys have already got going. I think Thursday night is the icebreaker at Lincoln, so that's awesome. Trent, an older set of quarter midget shocks from Advanced, and notice when you compress them by hand, can hear what sounds like air. Trent, do they have Schrader valves on them where you can add pressure? If they do, it sounds like you might not have any pressure in them. If they don't have a Schrader valve, so they're totally sealed up, you might just be hearing oil bleed by through their check valve system, and that's okay. How you would know if there was definitely an issue is if you fully extend the shock all the way and then slowly compress it. If there's a dead spot on that initial compression, you have an issue. It needs to go back to Advanced to get fixed. If there is no dead spot, you should be fine. Yep. Joseph Carter's kicking off at Lemoore out in California. I raced micros there a handful of times when I was younger. Henry County for Jeff By. I had one of our 360 customers go to Henry County, maybe earlier in February. They said that place is a dandy, a real gem of a racetrack. So good luck down there, Jeff. Carl, yeah, glad to help you guys, and anybody that's using our stuff. That's why we provide this content, do these shows, and I always used to make it a point to respond to every text message and every email before I went home, and that's still my goal. But there's some days it takes me a day or two. I mean, so I'm being 100% honest. Most Mondays, I'll have 60 to 70 emails that are legit tech questions, how's my order at, whatever, stuff that I really need to answer, not spam. And so sometimes if you send me something on Monday, it might take me till Tuesday or Wednesday to get back to you. If I'm traveling racing, it might take a few days, but I do promise that I get back to every single person. So if it's been 3 or 4 days and you haven't got a reply from me, send me another message. Maybe it went to spam or I didn't get it, but I definitely try to reply to everybody because that is very important. All you customers are extremely important to us. We wouldn't have a business without you guys. And so whether it's a message through social media, a text or an email, I definitely always try to get back. And again, I've said this before, but email is 100% the best way to get a hold of me because I have email on my phone, so it's pretty much with me everywhere. And some of these social media accounts, as we've grown, I don't monitor personally as much, and some of them I wouldn't even know where to look for a message at. So, Jeff, Sandpit, yeah, I heard that track is pretty sandy and pretty rough around the edges, but beggars can't be choosy at this point. We got to support every dirt track that's around, or there's not going to be any left for us to race by the time my grandkids want to race. So we definitely have to support all those places, and that's the only way they're going to get better and have money to improve their facility is by people supporting them. So glad you're going down there, and good luck. Is David Gravel coming down to wrench on that thing at Henry County? I saw that he helped you at a race earlier this winter. So, Brandon, we only got part of your message. Heard anything about Calistoga opening back up? No. I should see if I can pull it up on my phone. It'll probably be hard for me to show you. I'll try to post a picture to our Instagram tomorrow. So was my home track growing up. I grew up in Napa, California, 15 minutes from Calistoga, out near where Rico grew up and his family lives. And so I love Calistoga. I have so many fond memories of going there as a kid. The most picturesque racetrack in America, and I've been to hundreds of them. So I went out to watch my cousin's one of his final high school football games for his senior year, and me and my cousin drove up to Calistoga and walked in, and the gates were actually unlocked, and took pictures and videos of the track. And the Abrus really helped kind of rebuild the track maybe a decade ago. And man, there was a lot of money sunk into that place, like new lighting and new fencing, and it's just a beautiful place. But it sounds like the city, I might get this wrong, either the city or the county is selling half of the fairgrounds where the racetrack is, and they're trying to propose to build apartment complexes there. So where the golf course is and the racetrack is supposed to be going away, which is a real shame. But anybody that's been to Calistoga, you always wondered how it would hang around, because it's literally right in the middle of town. And as we all know, California isn't super race friendly, and especially up there where land values are crazy high. Probably the median price for a home in that area is, $700,000-$800,000. They don't want to hear racing. At one point I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but at one point, Calistoga was like the home track for NARC, Northern Auto Racing Club, and they would race there like 15, 20 times a year in the late 70s, early 80s. And it had kind of gotten to where it was just a special event track, and that's probably all it can be in modern day, because it's a big half mile. When Stevie Smith and a lot of these guys would come out from Pennsylvania to run for the first time on the Outlaw Tour, they said Calistoga reminded them a little bit of Williams Grove. Not quite as paperclip, but long straightaways, narrow. And so I doubt Calistoga ever opens back up, and it's a real shame with all the racing history there. The Vermeils, Dick Vermeil, the Super Bowl winning coach, his father and grandfather raced there, and one of the popular races was the Louis Vermeil Classic, and so real shame. But I have some great pictures and videos that I'll put on our social media of me going and checking out Calistoga Speedway. So Jeff Bye, he's fired. Well, the guy can drive a race car, but maybe he can't work on one. I did see that video and saw that it was a little bit of a struggle that night, and always hard to come in and moonlight as a crew chief on a foreign car with a foreign engine package and all that. So, yeah. Brandon, any changes to shocks from flat to high bank tracks for micros? You wouldn't need a different shock package, but definitely different settings from flat track to bank track. So if you have questions about your particular package, or you need some different recommendations, let me know. But typically on a bank track, you're going to run a little more rebound in your shocks to try to control movements, because the banking will naturally load the tires and make grip. So, yeah, Jeff, it was great to meet you at Volusia. I'm trying to get back there next weekend if you're going to be going back to check out those guys on Sunday and Monday. I think I'm going to take Hudson to Georgia for the first big quarter midget race of the year, and then jam from Georgia to Volusia for Sunday, Monday. So the quarter midget race is Friday, Saturday. So, yeah. Anybody else have any questions? No questions. If If you think of something after the fact, or you watch this video after the fact, shoot me a DM. Always happy to answer questions for anybody, whether you're using our shocks or not. We still are happy to answer tech questions. Since I started these videos 3 years ago, I get messages all the time for people who don't use our shocks, but they just have questions and are looking for answers, and I'm happy to answer those. Christian, good question. Any tips for do's and don'ts, non-wing sprint car shock package? Make minor shock adjustments. So as the track starts to slow down, adjust your shocks a half a turn at a time. Don't go from your tacky setting, which is, typically 6-8 clicks open, to 30 clicks open. You don't need to make that big a swing at one particular time. So make small changes throughout the night as the track typically slows down. You won't need to take as much rebound out of the front shocks on those big half miles as you would on a little quarter mile. And if the tracks are building a big curb, don't get the car too tight with the shocks, right? Because then it makes it very difficult to run the cushion. So that would be my quick 411 on non-wing shock adjustments. So, yep. Well, it's good to get to do another Monday morning quarterback. Thank you for those of you who tuned in. We will do more of these, and we will continue to produce tech videos. We actually have a video guy working a few days a week, and tomorrow is going to be a day to film some tech videos. So we'll get those posted as soon as they're done. And hope you guys all have a good week, and good luck racing in the near future when you get to do it. Take care.